Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 162 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I'm going to emphasize a little bit more of the orange pill than I usually do. I've been listening to a lot of Jeff Booth lately, and one of the things that he said was like when Galileo had the telescope and he's looking at the solar system from outside the normal system that everyone else is looking at it. They're just gazing up at the stars and they think that the whole freaking universe revolves around the earth. And only him being able to have a completely different perspective is what allowed him to basically become informed, better informed. And everyone that's still within the system looking at it from the inside has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And that's what happens when you start to understand Bitcoin. And every time I listen to one of these guys like a Jeff Booth, even though I've listened to hundreds of interviews by different people, every once in a while one of these guys comes along and is like, holy crap, there's a whole new way to look at this. And so everyone in the tradfi system can only look at the tradfi system from within the system. And so it's hard for a lot of people to understand that when he describes the natural state of the world as deflationary, meaning when new things are invented, we use them because they provide more value. So over time, the cost of things should be decreasing like 3 to 5% a year. And since deflation has never been present, has never been reflected in the prices, that means that inflation is intentional. It's it's man-made and it's intentional. And the people who are creating it are profiting from it. And the rest of us are kind of left, until now, have been left to just, let me try to find something that'll pace inflation like SPY. Not the PSY, kind of. It's a PSYOP a little bit. I don't know if that was a Freudian slip. But you can pace inflation with the SPY. So if we go back a year, okay, the SPY's is up 25%. That means that there was 25% inflation last year. And if anybody wants to argue it, they're free to do so. I really don't give a shit. Um, but this also makes me laugh because I forget who said it, and he might have mentioned it as well, but other people have mentioned it too, that outside of the Magnificent Seven, and I can't even name them because I don't bother with them, but it's like your Apples, your Amazons, your nvidia, Tesla. Outside of those, the SPY has a negative return. So what are we even doing investing in the 499th best stock, the 500th best stock? Bitcoiners like to say there's no second best, but even if you're going to temporarily invest in something like a MicroStrategy like I do, some people say it's a permanent investment. Um, but even if you're going to do that, at least you can say it's a derivative of the best asset. But a lot of the accounts that I follow, they're like, oh, how much would you allocate to fucking Chipotle? Nothing. Is that the 254th best stock? Like, if it's not, most rabid, laser eyed Bitcoiners arrive at the conclusion that Bitcoin is the best asset. Now, you may be able to outperform it on a short-term basis, but if you're on a 4, 5, 10-year cycle, if you zoom out, every single asset goes to zero compared to Bitcoin. So when it comes to diversification and you say, okay, well, I'm going to buy some of the best asset. Now, how much of the second best asset should I add to that? And the answer is none. It's not the best. And everything that human civilization has learned over the last 5,000, 10,000 years, I don't know how much of that is recorded history. I think the way that Jeff described it is that it has an error code built in. All the history books have an error code built in. And so even Chris Cole, who I've been addicted to recently, he's got like the dragon portfolio and he's got some research. Is it the hawk and the serpent? Really good stuff. And he went back 100 years to try to find what kind of portfolio would preserve wealth over 100 years, not just the covered call strategy that I've been doing that's been profitable for like the last 20, 30 years. But those have not performed as well if you go back 100. And so he came up with this dragon portfolio and it had like 20% gold in it. And you could probably modernize that and just chuck out the gold and chuck in the Bitcoin. But it still begs the question of if Bitcoin is the best asset, and once you study it enough, that's the conclusion that most people come to, why add anything else to it? So that's the long way of saying that if you don't want to do any of this covered call options crap that I do, probably just buy Bitcoin, set it and forget it. Uh, if you can't stomach the bear markets, then you'd have to figure something else out with that. But it also just kind of makes me laugh when I see people like, oh, how much, what do you think about SoFi? And what do you think about Palantir? And what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? Well, I think they're not Bitcoin derivatives. That's what I think. So I'm not interested. Even the Bitcoin derivatives, like the miners, will still go to zero relative to Bitcoin because at some point, somebody's going to screw up and they're not going to sell enough Bitcoin at the top to get them through the next bear market, or, you know, some of the miners won't survive. Some will, but I'm not I'm not beholden to the miners. Um, I sell premium in them just so that I can afford more of the assets like MicroStrategy that are leveraged Bitcoin derivatives. So if this really is a bull market, I like a leveraged Bitcoin asset. Temporarily I like it better than Bitcoin. But at the end of 2025, if the cycle holds, I will not like MicroStrategy as much as Bitcoin. And I know that I'm tempting fate by trying to time the market. But and it's a little bit hypocritical of me to even say that I'm willing to take that risk. So maybe I'm not looking at Bitcoin from as far outside this, outside the traditional finance system as I think I am. And sometimes I wonder if I should just empty out my stock portfolio and just load up on Bitcoin. But for now, the traditional finance system is in place and it is currently set up to transfer wealth from people who do not own financial assets to people who do own them. Now that's not a very laser-eyed thing to say because it's still my brain is still measuring things in dollars when I should just be measuring everything in Bitcoin. How many Bitcoin is my house worth? How many Bitcoin is my car worth? How many Bitcoin is whatever worth? pricing things in Bitcoin is probably a sign of really grokking where the world is headed in the next 10, 20 years. But until then, I'm still going to laugh my ass off at people who are either investing in index funds, they're investing in the 493 worst of the top 500 just to get the gains from the Magnificent Seven, and then other people, arguing about what's the best dividend stock, and you know, Costco, it moved up 3 spots in the market cap, and they have competitors like Sam's Club and Walmart and all these other stores. But Bitcoin has a monopoly on uncorruptible money. It's an honest ledger, and it's the first one that humankind has had ever. So we're about to see what human civilization can do when every single person on the planet has access to uncorruptible money. So what is the medical field going to look like when corruption is not incentivizing us to take experimental therapies? I'll let you fill in the blanks on that one. And what will the world look like when countries can't just wage war on another country and steal their gold because all of their wealth is encrypted and can't be stolen? And how will the governments stop stealing from people? Your tax rate is basically your theft rate. What percentage of theft and slavery are you? What theft bracket are you in this year? And what is the world going to look like when that's no longer happening? So that wasn't much of an options lesson, but tomorrow's roll day, so maybe you'll forgive me for my rant. And that explains why my portfolio is just Bitcoin and Bitcoin derivatives. MicroStrategy's leveraged Bitcoin. The miners are an extension of Bitcoin. Tesla is a little bit of a cop-out. They own Bitcoin, but I do not consider them a true Bitcoin derivative because 99% of their value is probably going to be derived from their products. But they are they are a disrupting force as well. So while Bitcoin is disrupting the entire world because we finally have honest money, when full self-driving and autonomous robots are in play, the world is going to be disrupted in a way that it's never experienced as well. And I don't know how those two forces are going to interact or collide, but my my guess is that Bitcoin makes everything better. Another thing that Jeff Booth was saying is, do you want AI to reach the singularity and basically decide humanity's fate on a fiat corrupt system, financial system, or do you want AI to help humanity in an honest, uncorruptible system? I think the answer there is obvious. So if Bitcoin can't save the world, then as far as I can tell, nothing can. and it's and it probably takes hundreds of hours to grok that, which may be why I don't think I've ever orange pilled a single person, because no matter how many people I talk to, I just don't say it the way Sailor says it. I don't say it the way Jeff Booth says it. I don't say it the way Saifedean says it. And I'm not going to spend 100 hours telling that person everything that I've learned watching hundreds of hours at 2x speed. I don't know. That's probably 500 to 1,000 hours at this point. And so unfortunately, everybody has to do the work, proof of work, and they'll grok it when they grok it, and which is why the saying that everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve isn't just a dunk. It's just kind of reality. And we're still early, so hopefully some of the tradfi folks that follow me that are still a little on the fence about Bitcoin will go and do their own research and save yourself from your assets going to zero relative to Bitcoin. Um, I got into it, for number go up, and I think Bitcoin is a bit of a bait and switch. That's how most people approach it. They just want to make money, and then 100 hours of study later, you're realizing self actualization and that you weren't even looking for. So, all right, I think that's it for now. Be good, Joe.